hello everyone, and welcome to another Phrase webinar. Thank you for joining us for today's exciting topic, which is how to use continuous localization to reach new markets faster. And in particular, how to do that with our automated project creation, or APC. Today, I am accompanied here at this webinar with my wonderful colleagues. First of all, Nebzat. He is our product marketing manager, and he will talk about the best practices for and benefits of continuous localization. And then he will make an introduction to our automated project creation feature. And then we have Sarma, our product manager, and she will take over to run a demonstration of the APC in practice. But before I pass the word to them, I would like to do a little bit of housekeeping. So first of all, I will mention that this webinar is being recorded, and we will be distributing the recording to you automatically tomorrow, so you will have the chance to rewatch. And also, we have set up a Slido space where you can submit your questions, and we will be answering them at the end of the session. So if you are interested or you have questions throughout the webinar, please join us in Slido. You can do that either by going to slido.com and entering the event code APC11, or you can scan the QR code that you can see on the screen with your mobile phone, or maybe easiest of all, you can click on a link that I will share in the chat just in a minute. Once I pass the floor to Nebzat. So without further ado, let's get started. Enjoy the webinar, and over to Nebzat.
Yeah, welcome everyone. Hello, I'm Nebzat, and today we're going to talk about, as Clara mentioned, continuous localization and its benefits in relation to our automated project creation feature, and then we will have a demo of it by our product manager, Sarma. Let's start with continuous localization. As some of you might already be familiar with, continuous localization is actually a best practice of integrating localization workloads into product development and transition cycles to enable uninterrupted multilingual content delivery. And the way this happens in real life, in a typical case, is that developers or designers will push the new code or new content to their repo, and the integration with the repo, which can be one of the many integrations Phrase supports for the platforms you generally keep your code or content in, will then identify these changes and push the content to Phrase. And then the content will be translated in Phrase, either by translators or using machine translation. And finally, the translated content will be merged back to the repo, where it's ready to be deployed and released to the market. And this process will actually be running in parallel to your development and release cycles, enabling you to keep localizing your content as you keep developing your product. And what benefits one would get out of performing continuous localization practices? Well, first of all, faster time to market, as your content or product is available in all markets simultaneously. You will be much more agile in launching your content or product in new markets, and you will be much more agile in reaching new markets whenever you need it, whenever you want it. Second of all, it's going to enable seamless collaboration, as it will reduce communication overhead for your team members and increase the transparency between your team members, and that will definitely boost the teamwork within your team. And third, it's going to streamline your localization workflows. Having a localization workflow in place to deliver multilingual content to the market is definitely a great start. But what should come next is streamlining that localization workflow, because when you streamline it using continuous localization practices, you will be reducing the complexity of your projects, your localization workflows, and you will be automating all the repetitive tasks. And fourth, it's going to reduce the workload for your managers and developers. And this is an important benefit because it's going to enable your team members to focus on other tasks that they have, while also keeping your localization workflow and localization projects going. And last but not least, it's gonna improve the quality of your content that you release to the market. Because with these practices, you will be able to put enhanced revision cycles in place, and you will be eliminating errors that you might have in your content or transitions. This way, you will have no cracks in your design or content once it's released to the market. And if we are to summarize what one would get out of continuous localization in one sentence, that sentence would be launch in all markets simultaneously to reach and conquer new markets faster. So what about APC or automated project creation? Well, automated project creation is actually the best way to achieve continuous localization because it monitors third-party instances such as version control systems and content management system, and automatically creates projects when a new content is added or existing content is updated. And the benefits you would get out of automated project creation is actually all the benefits you get out of continuous localization practices, because all those benefits apply for automated project creation as well. And knowing the importance and value of automated project creation for our users, we have actually been working on our APC feature for some time now, and we have actually came up with a new version of it, APC version 2. And this version is better, basically because it comes with a new architecture and it now offers some new capabilities. The new APC is better because it's built on top of a new architecture and with a new look, new design to offer you better performance and reliability, and also a simpler setup experience. And it's also better because it offers new capabilities to enable you to use more granularity in your settings. Granularity in the way you can set APC up. And if we are to elaborate a little bit more on the new architecture, it's going to offer you much better performance because it eliminates previous challenges, as it is a complete asynchronous implementation practice. And it's going to be much more reliable because it eliminates errors via clear error handling mechanism and messaging. And it's going to be much simpler to set up. It's going to offer you a much simpler setup experience because the new interface is much more intuitive and it's quite easy to set up. And the new capabilities the new version of APC will offer are automation of transition exports, which will allow you to select which workflows the transitions should be exported from, webhook support for monitoring if you want to have webhooks in place, and source update automation. It will allow you to select from which step the workflow should be reopened when there is an update or new content is added. And with all that said, now it's time to see what we have been talking about in action. And Sarma will give us a demonstration of APC version 2, and we will have a question and answer session after it. And thank you for listening, and I'd like to pass it over to Sarma.
Yes, gladly. You need to stop sharing your screen so that I can take over.
Yeah.
Yes, perfect. Hi, my name's Sarma. I'm the product manager for integrations and continuous localization. So I'm going to be demoing everything that Nebzat was mentioning and try to cover maybe a little bit more to the participants that are fairly new to the topic. I also wanted to quickly go and clarify what are the usual components that we are talking about when we're speaking about continuous localization. So in this specific scenario that I'm not going to be demoing, and this applies also to other integrations, the core that makes continuous localization possible is having an integration that is based on a connector build. And then if you have that component in place, you are able to create multiple APCs depending on your use cases. And at these certain points in time, you also have specific actions. For example, when you're creating an APC, you can select which project template you want to use. And I will go into detail and into explaining why project templates are also so crucial in this whole continuous localization workflow. and how do we actually apply them to the third-party system. So roughly, we create a new connector. I already did that. I'm going to show it to you. It connects directly to the third-party system. Today, the third-party system for testing is going to be our phrase strings product. And then we're going to create a couple of APCs to connect and run demos on their projects. So let's start then out on the projects page in Phrase TMS. I currently have only one project, did a fairly big cleanup. But before we can start really talking about continuous localization or anything, we need to dedicate some time in understanding what is a project template, what type of role it plays in our product, and what are the items that you can configure here. So for example, in this project template, that can be reused in not only APC scenarios, but in other scenarios that our customers need to. We define two names. So we have the template name, we have the project name, and then we have the third name, which is the dynamic project name that is going to be used when projects are created through the automated project creation. So this is one of the steps that I wanted to point out. The project template is important because this is the entity for continuous localization where you configure your source languages and all of your target languages. Of course, at any point in time, you can go back to the project template and either add or remove languages to adjust to your current scenario. In the project template, it's also, if necessary, you can select the machine translation engine. So if you're working with machine translation pre-translation steps, then this is a must for you. You can configure how you want your analysis to be generated. You can configure how pre-translation should work, to which thresholds, if any segments should be confirmed automatically. Then we also have a couple of automation steps here that are also important to us in the continuous localization scenario. But just to point out, there are a couple of important things in the project template. And that's the reason why we use it as the basis for automation. Just kind of a rough overview here. Then this is connector that I already created. So to start this continuous localization flow, I need basically two things to be present from the get-go. Is a phrase strings connector, which is already configured. I gave it a very generic name. I'm not selecting any default folders in this scenario. There are some additional automations on the string side. So for example, if we are sending back locales, should they be completed as marked? And then what if all locales are completed? Should the job also be marked as completed? And this is just to enable even more automation on the string side as well. So this is all that you need to configure basically to set up this integration. Then we are going into two APCs that I have configured, and I will go step by step through why certain configuration is the way it is and what's the intent, because at the end of the demo, I want to walk you through two different scenarios. That's why we're currently looking at an APC that is for a non-continuous project scenario. It means that every time there's going to be a new job on strings, we're going to create a new project in memsource. So we're not going to have a container project where we dump all of the jobs that are being created. That's going to be displayed in the other use case. So here, as we have our connector created, we actually need to select a monitored folder, and a monitored folder references basically the integration that is set up. And in this case, it's Sarma demo webinar. And under the projects, you need to find this space that you have created for your purposes. So this specific setup here and the structure, how you traverse it, is exactly the same that you have it on strings. So I will need then to select demo project, non-continuous project. Then it's on the main branch, and we are monitoring jobs on the main branch. That's all I need to do. And then if there are two jobs visible already below, that means they are in the right state to be picked up by APC and imported into the TMS system. This specific APC runs on something new that didn't exist in version 1. It's webhook based. So we have configured on the string side a webhook. I can also show it to you. So this is the particular webhook that I have configured for the demo. I'm tracking here only 2 events, where when a job starts and when a job is updated. That's all I need to do in my case, but there obviously are more advanced scenarios also possible how to configure them. So then we proceed to the next section where we have the creation and export. We define how we want projects to be created, and there you have always 2 options. One is create as a continuous project, means that from that monitored folder that I selected in the previous step, anytime there's any activity, might it be a new job or a job has been updated, it's always going to land in the same phrase TMS project, and no new additional projects will be created. Then we have the other option where every time there's new activity, we're also going to create a new project on our end. This has advantages and disadvantages. Continuous project is definitely more recommended to scenarios where you monitor one product and you want to keep all of the content, the relevant content in one project, just also to see how much texts have been translated for marketing in a particular month, or you want to make sure that always all the correct linguists are working on that particular project. And it's also easier to handle for the localization managers if there are really huge spikes in new jobs, then at least they're not going to be having hundreds of new projects are being created as well. The other option where we create new project every time, this is something for a smaller scale, just to make it more visible for the localization manager that there's new project that needs to be processed. But this usually is not something that enterprise customers would use. They would rather use continuous project. Then we are selecting the project template that I just quickly showed you with all of its configuration. So I'm picking it up here. And one of the things that I want to show is the default configuration when you select the project template is that all of the target languages are being pulled in at once. So this is the default listing. In APC, you have the possibility to say, for this particular remote folder that we are monitoring, I actually need translations only into German. So you are able to unselect French and Italian. So this basically overrides the target language configuration that you have in your project template. And and this is kind of big advantage to customers who have already a lot of different project templates that need maintenance and also restructuring all the time. So we know that our customers are using project templates in multiple areas, not only for continuous localization, but also in normal projects and also for different customers. So we don't want them to make even more project templates just because one language needs to be adjusted. So we're going to keep it here. So instead of 3 target languages, we're going to use just 1. Then we have a section that is called translation export. This is a completely new section. This did not exist in the first version of APC. And the possibilities currently are that you as a user can configure export at which workflow step. So the default configuration says at final workflow step. So basically, if you have in your project template configured translation workflow step, revision workflow step, and that's it, then with this configuration, the translation will be exported from the revision workflow step. There might be cases where you would want actually to export from a previous step, just due to time pressure, and then that's also possible. So for this scenario, we're going to go with the last workflow step. And then an additional setting is when translation export, when should it be exported? So where we have, again, two settings. Either the whole project is completed and then we trigger the export, which means that all of the jobs that are within this project, within the last workflow step, need to be completed by a provider for us to automatically export them back to the third-party system. This is a use case that we see mainly for LSPs, just to deliver everything in one batch to their end customer and not have partial deliveries. For real continuous localization scenarios, we do recommend using this. So selected workflow step is completed, which means once a job in the last workflow step is completed, and it might be German, Italian, and French. Once German is completed, that's automatically going to be exported back to the third-party system. And then if Italian is completed, it's also going to be exported back to the third-party system. So which really reduces the turnaround time of localization, which is also one of the goals for our product. And then a small thing is set checkbox set exported workflow step to delivered after export. So this is just really a clear indication to the translation project manager or localization project manager that from the UI perspective, everything that is in the state delivered, they know that it has been already delivered to the third-party system, and they do not need to perform any actions on this anymore. Then we have another section which is called automations. And here we have a couple of settings. So project actions, these are the actions that are always performed when a project is created. So in this particular configuration, I said create a new project every time there's basically a new file on the third-party system, which will mean every time I create a new project, all of these settings will be applied. So every time a new project is being created, we assign providers or linguists from the template that are pre-configured. We generate default analysis. We can generate buyers quotes. We can generate providers quotes. And we can also modify the email notification that the project owner is going to receive at this particular step. Currently, source update section is not visible. I'll show you in the second test run. So that's roughly it for this configuration. So I'm just going to save it. And what I'm going to do is create a new job on the string side. So we do have already two jobs. I'm just going to create quickly another. And even here, if we add all of the languages that are available, we do have configured on APC that we only will allow translations from English to German. So even if here we still have French and Italian, those languages will be discarded. And I will just remove them as well. So that's that. Then I'm going to start the job. And this is where the webhook should be triggered. Let's see how fast. And we have already a project created just because I started the job and the webhook got triggered. And then the APC knew that we need to create a new project. So I have two workflow steps here. One is translation, which is already completed. And then we have revision, where we can look around. At least this job we can pre-translate. And then I'm just going to change it for these two. So I'm going to set these two jobs for completed by provider so that they're all completed. And then the first job is already in the delivered state because it got completed sooner. And then we need to wait a second. Now the second one is being delivered. And the last one is being delivered. So this project is completely automatically completed. And if I go to this particular job and just refresh it, the status of the language is marked as completed, and so is the job as well. So it's completed. So it also took the configuration that we have in the connector settings. So that is one of the cases that I wanted to show. Then the other case was a bit more something closer to what most of our customers do or intend to do, is a automated project creation flow with a continuous project. So with a project where all of the activity lands, no matter if it's a new job, if there have been updates to existing jobs, they always land in the same phrase TMS project. So currently I'm just monitoring a different same connector. I'm going to use phrase strings. I'm just monitoring a different project there. That's not a problem. Here I have set up a scheduler. This is different from the webhook because you can configure, for example, either minutes, hourly, daily, weekly, and monthly. So if I would say change and discard. So hourly, I can say every 3 hours or 4 hours, APC would query phrase strings in this case and look if there are any updated entities or jobs are, and then import them. Or you can say daily, which is something that our customers are also a fan of, because they can say every day at 8 a.m., please perform this check, because then the localization managers that are actually working on it go to the office and they have already all of the new projects in their systems, and they can start working on it. For the demo purposes, I'm going to keep it to just 5 minutes. And that is also the shortest interval that you can configure there. So I'm using the same project template. Here I'm using all of the 3 languages. I'm not discarding any of them. And same export settings. And here we see now that the source update section is available. This is available only when you're using continuous project scenarios. But if there are any changes in a job that has been translated already once in phrase TMS, and then new changes have been applied on the string side, we will monitor for these changes and also re-import those jobs into TMS for another round of localization. So here you have then similar options as above. So you can reopen jobs at a certain workflow step. So in this case, I selected I want to reopen jobs from the second workflow step, which would be the revision workflow step. If it's the first one, it will simply reopen the translation step and the revision step as well. So that's not a problem. And then you as well on this step, when there's new content in phrase TMS, you can generate analysis, quotes, and also notify the project owner that a specific action has been done on our end. So I'm going to do that and just save it. And then this is the project that I'm talking about. It already exists. I did a couple of tests here. So we have one job currently with the name demo round 1 imported. So on the string side, then we will need to make some adjustments. So we can create a new job with the same keys. That's not a problem. English. So that is one of the items that I wanted to do. Then we can go back to the other jobs. So the first job job round 1, which is already completed, I actually want to add here something new. So I'm going to go to languages. And I'm going to add a new key. Okay, now we have it. This is the key that I just created. And what I can do and want to do is I want to add it to an existing job. So we have 2 now jobs for selection. And I want to add it to the demo round 1 job because this was also already completed in our phrase TMS end. So just to reopen it again and to show you how it's run. Great. So that's currently the status. We have 2 jobs. Then we are going, I can take an automatic look. We have the interval set to 5 minutes, so that might be a little bit too long. So I might nudge it a little bit faster. Yes. And now you see that we have the new job that I created into the 3 target languages that I had. And then we also have changes in the existing job. So if I would, for example, open up this job, or maybe let's go back to the first. So the first workflow step was just machine pre-translation, and it's still all completed because for the source update, I had configured that only the second workflow step should be reopened. So this is nothing for us to look at, but we can open up this file in particular and look for our new key that we added. So this is the new key that we added to the existing content. So without creating a new job or creating a new project, it just updated the existing source content within a job that already existed. And then in the same project, it also added the new jobs without creating a new project. And this is what a continuous project for us means. So everything that happens in that monitored entity, in this case, is the strings project, demo on their end. We're monitoring just this entity. And then all of the items that might be happening within this project will always be found within one phrase TMS project as well. And since that is reducing a lot of communication overhead, it also makes sure that you can assign specific localization managers to specific projects and make them the owners of that. So it definitely reduces overhead as well. Yeah, that was roughly a demo. So then I would say we can go into Q&A. I will stop sharing my screen. So we have one question. Does the app let you know in any way of the new content to be localized or changes to be adjusted or inconsistencies, and how? Well, there are multiple answers to this. So the application, if there's new content, you do receive an email notification. You also receive a notification in the notification center. And then same goes for changes that need to be adjusted. And if there are, maybe it would be worth also to clarify what is meant by inconsistencies. Because that I would not be able to answer that. So maybe we can follow up on that question. Yes, where can I configure things like workflows and pre-translation? These items are configured in the project template. So in the project template, you have already a set of predefined workflows, but you can also configure your custom workflows and then apply them to the project templates. So for example, you can create a MT pre-translation workflow or a specific post-editing workflow or client review workflow. So there's a lot of customization around that. And once those are configured, they will be also available in the project template. And pre-translation can also be configured in the project template. Then we have, do you have any best practices for keeping track of the different jobs in a continuous project? Distinguish the different jobs that were created. We do have a job history. So if you're looking at a particular job, we do have the 3 dots in the UI, and it shows you the full history, when it was first imported, when it was last exported. So definitely for continuous project and continuous jobs themselves, you can track through the job history, like when they were created, when they were last updated. So that's the place to go to see that information. Okay. Inconsistent. And now we have the clarification. Thank you. Inconsistencies, different translations for the same source content. Well, the inconsistencies come from the translation memory. So, well, not from the translation memory, but since we're using translation memory for pre-translation and saving all of our content that has been localized, it actually will eliminate inconsistencies because it's going to take the highest match of the translation memory that is currently in place. Can the app be integrated with TMSs such as Plunet? The app itself is only for internal use. There's also no public API at this point for it. So it would not be possible to integrate it at this current time. There are plans in the future to potentially make some API endpoints also available for customers, but we have not discussed if that's going to take place this year or next year. If a source file is updated while a job is in progress, how will that affect the translation process? Will the source updates be implemented immediately or only after the next update scheduler is triggered? Yes. So if there's source changes and in a particular file and the translator is already working on it, we will wait on the next scheduled trigger to import these changes. So it might happen that a linguist is working on a particular job and we will import also the new changes into it. Yes, what's the naming of the jobs created via APC? Is it customizable? Metadata to new jobs. It's completely, well, it's customizable to some extent. It's customizable in the sense that for that section, we have 6 or 7 allowed macros that we use, variables. So those can be used. You can always add, for example, email address from the third-party system. So if someone is submitting something from Contentful, we can also use that as a macro to display that. But there are ways to customize it. Depends on the specific requirements, I would say. Okay, is the job history searchable? Yeah, it's only visible from job to job basis, so it's not searchable. I'm not sure if there's also an export that would be available. I would need to double check that and maybe get back to you later on that question. Okay, what is the best workflow if the client wants to review the translation in their phrase strings and make a comment? So if you're using the whole phrase localization suite, and then you initially you store your content in phrase strings, but use TMS for the localization has been done, then you send it back to strings, and the review process happens on strings basically, and it's either a change or a comment. So what we are working currently on is to enable to send back changes on keys. What we are currently unable to send back are comments. With the APC, are all updates also automatically saved into the translation memories? Yes. As soon as a segment has been confirmed by a linguist, it gets saved. Do I always have to wait for the webhook or scheduler to trigger updates? Can I also perform manual checks if needed? Yes, and this was exactly something that I was also doing today. We do have two functions on top, which is check now and force import. And with check now, you basically imitate the scheduled trigger or the webhook. So that's definitely, it can be pressed as much as you want to. In case, for example, the next scheduled time is in 3 hours and you cannot wait that long without changing any settings, you can go and actually say check now, and it's going to perform the action. Which one of the new capabilities of APC version 2 offer the best value, most benefit? Can you elaborate? Technically, the most valuable benefit that we currently have is when we are exporting translations. So what I was mentioning, you can either export translations when the whole project is completed, and that was something that was the default setting for APC version 1. And with version 2, we actually are now able to say if Italian is done 1 day sooner than French, Italian gets exported automatically. So that was a huge requirement for our customers also, just to make sure that there are certain markets where if a content is ready, they receive that content immediately and can continue with their internal cycle. And one of the biggest benefits is also the setup, the whole user experience, and how simple we have made it for users to set up as much automation as possible, with a lot of tooltips and warnings and guidance, and to really make sure that even a new user that has not worked previously with APC has a good overview of what needs to be done. Okay, if we configure the APC as a normal project, not continuous, is there some naming convention to keep track of the updates and avoid misses? Yes, it goes back to the project template where you have the dynamic name. You can configure their macros or anything. For example, you could say contentful marketing, and then every time a new project is going to be created, you will see this is contentful marketing, this is contentful marketing. So definitely is customizable. And I would suggest exploring that section in the project template, where you click on the checkbox and then you see which macros are supported and what type of naming conventions you can give to your dynamic project names. So yeah. How exactly APC version 2 handles and eliminates errors, prompts an error and retries creating the project later. The main retry mechanism that we have is that if a connector, for example, has an outage for some reason, the reason might be that we have reached the API rate limit on contentfuls and then for some certain time, actually it's blocked. So APC will retry 5 times the connector to say, hey, we need to retrieve new content. Are you ready? And then after 5 times, if it's still not successful, the user will receive an email that this APC has been temporarily deactivated because there's an issue with this specific connector that is associated with it. And then we basically very clearly state to the user, these are the actions that you need to do, and these are the certain things that are failing currently. Errors also are being eliminated just by the new architecture that we have. So it's asynchronous communication. We did have a couple of performance challenges in APC version 1, where in larger scope projects, some jobs were not created. So that also has been eliminated. So just to give a couple of examples.
Okay, so I think we are running out of time. Thank you very much, Sarma, for answering the questions, for the demo, and Nebzat, thank you for the presentation. I know that there are some questions waiting in the queue, but unfortunately we will not have the time to answer them live, but we will get back to you in writing either tomorrow or later in the week. So thank you again, and have a good rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.